Hi everyone, Tom Evans here, ultra distance trail runner. This year I finished third in my debut 100 miler at Western States, going under the magical 15-hour mark. And you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome back to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Pogo Physio and Physiocram. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio, and each week we'll aim to bring you the latest and greatest information designed to inform and inspire you towards your own physical best performance. We do this across a range of different episodes, including featured performers, expert editions, interest editions, and coaches' corners. And on today's episode, I'll bring you a conversation that I had with this week's featured performer. He's been described as ultra running's newest star, Tom Evans. By way of bio, elite ultra trail runner Tom Evans has really made his mark on ultra trail running. Tom, a former British Army captain, made an incredible debut on the scene when he came third in 2017 in the gruelling 251-kilometre desert ultramarathon des Sables. There's a great story behind this elite performance and debut, which includes a bet with some of his former military mates in a pub. This third place finish was the best result of any European in the history of the iconic race. Tom astounded once again in 2018 when he won the 101-kilometre Triple C race at the Ultra-Trail du Mont-Blanc. And from there, Tom has gone from success to success. Tom made his debut in his first 100-mile race in another iconic event, the Western States, in 2019. And lo and behold, Tom picked up a podium spot, coming home with a bronze medal, to go also with his bronze medal from representing Great Britain in the World Ultra Trail Running Championships. In this episode, Tom shares his highs, lows, and learnings from his career, and there are so many learnings. Tom really has a way with articulating his training philosophies and insights, and you are going to enjoy and learn from him. I certainly did. There's some great tales, including training with former featured performer of this show, Zane Robertson, whilst in Ethiopia. Here is my conversation with ultra trail running star Tom Evans. Tom Evans, all the way from the UK. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Hey, thanks very much for having me, Brad. How you doing?
Mate, I am well, and you have shuffled your day around to make this happen, so thank you for doing that. And we've been trying to set this up for a little while, and all the while since a mutual friend of ours, Zane Robinson, connected us, and then we realised that your girlfriend, Sophie Caldwell, also is a Super League triathlete, so it was quite the small world.
Yeah, very small. No, amazing.
And Tom, your story is equally as amazing. It's something that I, as I've prepared for this recording, really enjoyed reading around. It's not what you'd call, I guess, a conventional ultra runner's journey at all. So, Tom, maybe we start with you growing up. I mean, you were a British Army captain, former British Army captain. So how did Tom Evans find his way into a pair of running shoes, let alone discover the talent that lies within you?
Good question. If we start a little bit before that, like when I was at school, I enjoyed keeping fit. Like I played a lot of team sports, predominantly rugby and hockey, and did a little bit of running. But to be honest, the running for me was more of a way to keep fit, and I enjoyed sort of testing myself physically. So I thought, and running was such an easy way to do it. So I've always run a little bit. And when I was then in the military, just through the nature of the job, you're doing quite a lot of endurance training anyway. It's very non-specific, it's very slow, but it's a lot of time on feet doing low intensity exercise. So I think it built up sort of fairly robust. And then, I had some friends who did the race Marathon des Sables in 2016. And then I did, is that right? Or 2017? I can't remember what year I did it now.
And my research tells me 2016, your friends ran it.
Yeah, I think that, they did 2016, I did 2017. So they ran in 2016. They did really well. For those who don't know, the race itself it's a 250 kilometer multi-stage self-supported race across a part of the Sahara Desert. Lots of people in the military do it. It's a real sort of test of strength, stamina, and endurance. And they did it. They did really well. They finished sort of top 300 out of 2,000, and were sort of down in the pub one evening. They were giving it the big ones, of saying, "Oh yeah, then we did this." And I said, "Yeah, guys, you did really well, but there were still like 295 people ahead of you." And just the classic British sort of off the cuff, "I reckon I could do better than you." To which sort of they replied very quickly saying, "I bet you can't." "Yeah, I can. How hard can it be?" So sort of probably slightly hungover the next morning, signed up to Marathon des Sables. One thing that at this point, so this would have been end of 2016, I didn't have a coach, was only running for fitness, was still playing rugby for the Welsh Guards and for the army. Sort of had bitten off more than I could chew. Yes, I had watched James Cracknell documentary on Marathon des Sables, but was incredibly naive, had never run anything further than sort of 1,500 meters. So one thing led to another, and found myself on the start line. I did do a lot of research, and I did do a lot of training. And for me, sort of doing that race was great, because the best runner isn't necessarily going to win, because there are so many external factors. There's so much work you can do before, whether it's sort of heat acclimation or specific training, getting used to running on the sand. And I was living in London at this point with the army, so it wasn't in a hot environment, but sort of I spent my time going to the heat lab and doing some training in there just to try and prepare, as that's what I'd read about that was supposed to be good, and it's what everyone did. So I thought, right, I might as well do it. On the start line, sort of standing next to the heat's Moroccans, and they're sort of looking at this slightly podgy British guy. Went off pretty hard and sort of managed to keep it all together, and ended up being sort of the first European, or the first non-Sub-Saharan African male to podium in the race, which sort of still sounds pretty bonkers. When I'm sort of trying something, I don't like to dip my toe in. I'm just going to sort of dive straight in, and that's sort of kind of been something that's gone through the year. I sort of like to make a quick decision and then stick with it, and it sort of that one was panned out pretty well, and has sort of transformed my last 2 years and then the foreseeable future, which is really exciting.
And Tom, just to be clear on that, so you watched your friends took part, they challenged you, you said you could do better, off you went. You said you were just fitness running, playing a bit of rugby. And in the fitness running, Tom, was that 15 kilometres a week, or a few, 10 miles? What did that add up to at that point?
See, the sad thing is, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
I didn't keep a log. I didn't have Strava or a smartwatch or anything. It was, if I had an hour free and I wasn't tired and I had nothing else to do, I'd go on a run. If I had 2 hours, I'd go on a run. If I had half an hour, I'd go on a run. There was no structure to it. It was so non-specific for 99% of the time. It was just sort of one pace. And I would run hard. If I had an hour, I'd pretty much run as hard as I could for an hour. If I had 2 hours, I'd do it for 2 hours. The simplicity of that was great, because I got just to understand, I got to sort of fast track and got to understand my body. Sort of incredibly fortunate to have been in the military, where 7 years of very low intensity, what some people now would sort of call sort of baseline training. You're building that foundation, which just meant that when I then started training slightly more specifically with running with a little bit of weight on my back, it sort of just clicked in naturally. Is actually, yes, I haven't been an athlete forever, but I think the huge difference between being in the military and being a professional athlete is, in the military, you are trained to perform at your best when you're feeling your worst. And an athlete, you perform at your best when you're feeling your best. Yes, different, but also certain similarities. And in a multi-stage race, and being an ultra runner, there are gonna be days where you feel horrendous, and you've just got to sort of make that decision. Right, am I feeling too bad to train, or actually is this me just being a little bit tired and I can sort of soldier through? So yeah, I think there was no log to the training. It was very unspecific, and yeah, would just run purely for enjoyment, and also knowing that I'd signed up to a race and didn't want to sort of completely embarrass myself. And I wanted to finish in the top 290.
You said something very profound. In the military, you're trained to perform at your best when you're feeling at your worst, as opposed to an athlete who is looking to train to perform at their best when they're feeling at their best. What took you into the military as a young man? So,
yeah, I guess like when I was growing up, like I enjoyed being at school. My favorite part of school was playing sports and being outdoors. Yeah, so just kind of going into my final year of school when I was, it's really when I was sort of 17, turning 18. So just thought, like, yes, going to university would be great, and would have gone to a sports university, played loads of sport, not got heaps out of it, and didn't really know what I would then want to go and do afterwards. And my dad had been in the military. He's only served for 3 years, but had always said how amazing it was. He never told me not to. Sort of family suggested that I go to university first, just so I've got something to fall back on. And I think that's, at the time, really sensible option. But for me, it was I kind of know what I want to do. I don't want to lead a normal Monday to Friday 9 till 5 job. So just thought, right, let's see if I can get into the military. And at that time, going into the British Army as an officer, very few people went in as a non-graduate, so not going to university. So I think in my year, there were maybe 10 out of 300 of us that hadn't been to university. So I was one of, if not the youngest going through. And I think for me, that was, it was just a huge challenge, because when you're that age, the difference in sort of physical and mental maturity between the ages of 18 and 23 is huge. So I think I really had to work very hard in order to prove myself, because you're not just the young guy at the back. You want to be on an even playing field. And then from there, sort of joining the Welsh Guards, it was a very sporty regiment, and it meant that I could play heaps of sports. Hi, Pidge, mate. And got to play heaps of sport. And sorry if you can hear the dogs' feet pattering about.
Should be out there taking them for another session, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. Do a bit of some hill reps. And the military was just, for me, it ticked all the boxes. And I had the most incredible time. And it's in my final year in the military, they supported me pretty much as a full-time athlete, which I don't know any other job that would do that. Pretty much 12 months, there you go. We know you're going to leave. So go and do what you can do. And just remember where you've come from. And I think I owe a lot of my current and hopefully future sporting achievements due to the military.
And was that after, you've placed third in Marathon des Sables, that they said that, all right, let's support you into this next chapter?
So it's after. So 2017 had a good year, sort of third in Marathon des Sables, or fourth at the Eiger Ultra-Trail, which was my first mountain race, and then fourth at the CCC, which was my second mountain race and my second 100K. And sort of from there, I sort of thought that was my decision point, like, right, I want to start focusing on this, and I want to start taking it a little bit more seriously. And I've been working with a coach at this point, Alison Benton, with the AB training group in Brighton, so not a million near sort of where my folks live. So I've decided that I wanted to start taking it a bit more seriously. So 2018 for me was going to be a kind of a make or break year. So I ended up racing in another multi-stage race in Costa Rica at the beginning of the year that I went in, probably should have finished 5th or 6th. And so really surprised myself and surprised a lot of people had heard of me in a multi-stage race because of Marathon des Sables. It kind of like, he's sort of one-trick ponies. Had a good race here, but ended up having a really good race in Costa Rica, and probably went in ranked 5th or 6th, ended up winning it and breaking the course record on every single day. And for me, sort of the start of that year, that was 6 months of actual training with a coach and a program. And so I thought, right, if that can be done after 6 months, like, what can we do in the next 6 months? So then I raced where my folks lives, in a national park called the South Downs. It's a 100-mile route pretty much exactly long. It's an old British walking route from Winchester to Eastbourne, and they do a 100-miler there and they do a 50-miler. So I thought, right, sign up to the 50-miler and do some really specific sort of between marathon and 50-mile training because it looks pretty similar. At this point, I was then selected to race for GB in the Trail Running World Championships. So I thought, perfect, use this 50-miler just as a long run and go really hard. And that, the South Downs Way 50 went really well. Broke the course record there. And that ended up just being a time trial. Sort of was running on my own from 10 meters in. But it set me up really nicely for the Trail Running World Championships. And I took a lot of the lessons that I'd learned preparing for Marathon des Sables sort of about training specifically and training at the right intensities. So I then went out to Spain, to near Valencia, to a place called Penigolosa, where the Trail Running World Championships were held. And I lived out there for a month just to get a really good understanding of the course, the heat, climates, and everything that you're going to prepare. So in my sort of view, prepared as well as I possibly could have done. But realistically, I've been running for just over a year at this point. There are professional guys who've been doing this for 5, 10, 15 years full time. So on paper, like we said, sort of, yes, we think top 5 is you have the perfect day, and some people don't have the perfect day. But yeah, we'll sort of shoot for a top 10. Ended up finishing on the podium, finished 3rd there and secured the silver medal for the team. And for me at that point, that's when the military said, right, like you're kind of on something here. Yes, trail running still isn't an official sport. It's not an Olympic sport, so we can't fully support you, but we appreciate that it's growing. It's one of the quickest growing sports. Like people finish a marathon and think, right, I want to do another challenge. Do I want to either run a faster marathon where I've done it, or do a bit of sort of running, traveling, and go and run Berlin or Boston or New York? It was this weekend. Or they think, right, I want to do something longer, or on the trails in the mountains. And I think it's certainly in the UK, it's becoming so popular, which I think is incredible. I see trail running now where Ironman triathlon was 5-10 years ago, which for me as one of the younger athletes, I see it as, it's hugely exciting. There are new guys sprouting up all over the place, these new incredible races, and you get to see so much of the world in amazing places. Like I'm sure Berlin's a great marathon if you want to run a quick time, but you're not looking around, you're not really enjoying yourself. You're not probably going to do a course recce. But I'm off to New Zealand in middle of January, hopefully staying with the Falcon while I'm out there for a little bit.
That's AKA Hayden Wild.
Yeah. If he's listening to this, please let me stay. I can't wait to sort of go and see the course and get to spend time in a beautiful part of the world and experience more of it. And I think a lot of people ask, like, why have you sort of just gone straight to trail running? Like, don't you think you should like build up and sort of fulfill sort of a more natural route into the sport? So do some half marathons, do some marathons. And it's like I use marathon, I use half marathon as part of my training, because living in the UK, you're not living in the mountains, which just means that you've got to train slightly differently. And I think for me, that's one of my big strengths.
So interesting. And Tom, just on the Marathon des Sables, a couple of things. How heavy is the kit that you carry? And secondly, to get ready for that breakout 3rd place, you were training a bit more obviously more intentionally. How do you prepare miles-wise for a 251 kilometre stage race? You use the phrase training specifically and training with the right intensity. So just a couple of things on that before we move off the Marathon des Sables.
I think kit-wise, you have to have a minimum of 6.5 kilos. There are certain things you have to carry. You have to carry a sleeping bag. You have to carry a certain amount of calories for every day. So I really enjoyed researching, like, what can I get? It's like bang for buck calories. It didn't work with nutritionists, worked on my own at this point. How many calories can I get in for how much weight is it going to be? And what's the breakdown in that, sort of both in terms of macronutrients, but also in terms of micronutrients? You're running for a week, sleeping on the floor of the desert. Like, you need vitamins, you need minerals, otherwise you're just going to get sick. And that's definitely something that I've brought into then when you live at home. Like, you've got a lot of people who will sort of buy, and I've done it before, sort of buy supplements and get halfway through it and just think, stuff this. It's sort of a little bit like too much hard work. And actually, you may not notice it in sort of the first 4 months, and maybe you only need to start noticing it like a year down the line. But I think, it's so important. And I really enjoyed that phase of Marathon des Sables. And the second bit, sort of mileage-wise, during the time, I reckon I was probably averaging somewhere around 100 to 110 kilometers a week. Mostly, so I definitely ran my easy runs too hard and my hard runs too easy. And that's only something that recently, since going to Ethiopia this year, is something that's changed. One of my pet hates, you go on an easy run and it's just not easy. It's like every training session, so everything I do now serves a purpose, whether it's going to the shops to buy food for the week, that serves a purpose, or it's going on an easy run, or it's going to the gym, or it's going to the track. Everything serves a purpose for the bigger goals. And for Marathon des Sables, you didn't know exactly what the breakdown was going to be, but you knew it was going to be in and around a marathon for 4 days. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Double marathon on day 5. But for some people, that will take 48 hours. So if you're fortunate enough to be fast, and I think I ran it in 7 hours, I then had 24 hours off. So 2 months before, I sort of replicated the week pretty much, sort of minus 10K on each day. So 4 days of 30K, a day of 60K, a day off, and a day of 30K. Pretty big, pretty specific. Did a little bit of running on, not necessarily on sand, but UK winter, mud and snow. It's kind of the same thing. It's pretty miserable. And yeah, so I think if I was preparing for it again, and I will race it again, not for a couple of years at least, because it just destroys your body. I will train differently, and I will train very specifically and work with experts in sort of nutrition and heat in order to prepare as well as I can, because I think it's a race that has been dominated by sub-Saharan Africans forever, and I think it's a race that it can be won by European.
You're listening to Ultra Trail Running star Tom Evans on this, a featured performer episode of the Physical Performance Show. Today's episode is lovingly brought to you by PhysioCreme. PhysioCreme is a topical massage cream containing natural plant-based ingredients, ideal for the temporary relief of muscular aches and pains. If you're conscious of what you put on your body, you'll be happy to know that PhysioCreme does not contain parabens or hydroxybenzoates, and its non-greasy formula doesn't leave any sticky residue behind. PhysioCreme can be found Australia-wide at your local Coles, chemist or health store, as well as via their online shop. They've offered Physical Performance Show listeners a 20% discount by simply using the coupon code POGO, P-O-G-O. Hurting sucks and PhysioCreme have got your back. Today's episode is also brought to you by Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to complete their rehabilitation, get back to their physical best, and in doing so, cross what we term the physio finish line. Our philosophy is simple. We do not want to see you for a session more than what you need or a session less. We just want to ensure that you cross your physio finish line. To find out more about Pogo Physio's award-winning services, including our 1-hour initial appointment or our online telehealth consulting options, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back with Tom Evans on this featured performer episode of the show.
Let's talk about something just touched on, the lesson you took from training in Ethiopia. You spent some time there with Zane Robertson, and you said you learnt to not make your hard runs too easy and your easy runs too hard. And I think any runner putting their hand on their heart at some stage would say that they've succumbed to that. So what was it about the Ethiopian environment or culture that helped you appreciate why that's a mistake?
So I think first, I went out to, as a lot of runners do, I have got the next 3 weeks of my training mapped out. Runners are beasts of habit. We love habit. We love knowing, right, on a Monday we do this, on a Tuesday we do that. I went to Ethiopia pretty much, I was out there for 7 weeks. I went out there with pretty much 7 weeks of plan, knowing what I want to do each week in order to prepare for Western States. I think day 4, I realized out there that just not going to work. Like, you're at such high altitude, training so hard, potentially getting sick. You've just got no idea how your body is going to respond. And yeah, you've got to listen to your body more. And having a smartwatch is really helpful. Don't get me wrong. And nowadays they will tell you your recovery and what intensity that run was and what they would give you your zones and your VO2 max. And that stuff is really, really good for most runners. But then when you're going above and beyond what you think you should do, there were times where my watch said you need to take 400. I think the biggest I got was 485 hours recovery, which is endurance. It's just not going to happen. So it's very much listening to your body. And there was, when I was out there with Zane is a very, very quick marathon runner, and he's a quicker marathon runner than I am. And my easy runs were quicker than his. So if you go out there and run with 204, 205 marathoners, and you're going on an easy run quicker than they are. I'm not used to the altitude. I'm a much slower runner than they are. And you think, why am I training so fast? And I was sort of I'd run to splits. If I wasn't running a 425 per K, I was running too slowly. I still used the watch, and it was a huge, huge help and a great training partner out there. But ended up for my easy runs just sort of chucking it under a sleeve. Yeah, just running to feel. And some days you'd run it 5 minutes a K. Some days you'd run it 4:10 a K, just depending on how you feel. And you realize that actually everything that you do does affect how you're feeling. If you've done a super hard session a day before, or even in Ethiopia, 2 days before, when it sort of typically came to catch you up, then you needed to run easy and really run easy. The idea of a recovery, people say, I'm just going to go on a recovery run. The idea of a recovery run is to get back genuinely feeling better than you did before you left. And I think if you just hold yourself accountable, as a runner, you can blame other people. You stand on the start line for any race. It's how's your training gone? The first thing people do is just excuses. This hasn't gone well. So in the last couple of years, I've learned that there is no such thing as a perfect build-up. Everyone, you can try and have as good a build-up as possible, but something is going to go wrong. You are going to miss a session, probably. You are going to have a night where you may not sleep as well, and your program's got to be readjusted. But yeah, being able to realize that at an early point and think, right, what can I do in order to make sure that I'm facilitating recovery? Right, one thing that can change is my easy runs can slow down. And yeah, you get back in through the door, and it sort of sticks to me quite well. You get back in, I sort of get back in at Ethiopia, and the guys at the front desk of the training camp were saying, you look great. Have you been running, or are you coming back? And I'm like, I'm finished. I've just done a 45-minute recovery run, and it was conversational through the whole thing. They're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Most people are always so tired. And I'm like, why? It's a recovery run. I genuinely feel better now. Something that I brought back, and probably my biggest tip for all runners, be it professional athletes or just starting out, run 5K a week, is run your easy runs easy and your hard runs hard, because that's the stuff that's going to make the difference. And there's no clever way of weighing it out. There are no shortcuts to it. You need to build a base, and then you need to build top end. And yes, the stuff in the middle is important, but focus on the two bookends first, and then everything will sort of kind of meet in the middle.
And I mean, that's been your experience and your observation, Tom, direct from Ethiopia. And it's certainly consistent with the work of, sports scientists like prior featured expert edition Dr. Stephen Seiler in his work around really what he then later coined the 80-20 principle. The best runners on the planet spend 80% of their time steady stuff, zone one, if you like, and then 20% when it's on, it's really on. So what was a recollection from when it was on in Ethiopia? Can you remember any particular sessions that stand out?
Yeah, so I sort of, being incredibly enthusiastic, I think I've been in country for 5 days and met up with Zane. I was like, I feel pretty good. I'm doing my first session tomorrow. And he's like, oh, cool. We're doing a session. We're dropping a little bit down, going to a place called Akaki, and just going to do a 10-mile tempo at marathon pace. And I'm like, sweet. Sounds good. I sort of got my Jack Daniels V-Dot, like what you're supposed to run at heat and at altitude. And like my marathon pace was like, according to that, like 3:45 per K. So I was like, cool, it's probably going to be like 3:30. Should be able to hang on for a little bit. Just shoot out at 3 minutes flat for the first K. And I'm just not ready for this. I think I hung on for like 3.5, 4 miles and just dragged myself. And it's the car that goes with you with the drinks has got to stay with the front runners. So when you're dropped off the back, you're dropped off the back. And I was so stubborn. I was like, right, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish this run. I don't care if I walk, run or crawl. Like I've got water. I'm not going to die. I'm going to be fine. That was in week 1. And then in my last week, I had my final workout that was not in a khaki again. And it was going to be a 35 kilometers at marathon pace. So I was like, right, 7 weeks in, let's see what I can do. Made sure that I'd sort of used it as a race. Like I slightly tapered for it, and made sure my easy days were really easy before it. And I stuck the whole workout. Finishing with like 206, 207 marathoners at 2,000 meters of elevation, undulating terrain at marathon pace. And you do that and you kind of feel like, right, well, that made sense. Like I feel like, yeah, that for me sort of was a huge tick in the box, huge confidence booster that actually what I had learned and the training that I had adapted and modified while I was up at serious altitude, it worked. And I think sort of the main thing that I learned when I was there is there's a difference between being a good runner isn't just about running fast. Like being a good runner is all about, yes, you've got the running side of it, but actually the running side of it is so small. And so I see it sort of as a triangle. You're running at the top, and then the things that support your running are your sort of nutrition, your hydration, and also your sleep and your recovery. If your sleep and your recovery and your nutrition and hydration are off, you're not going to be able to run properly. And one thing that the Ethiopians do incredibly well is their recovery, because all of the full-time athletes out there have not got very much to do. There aren't the distractions that you get in everyday life. It is very much a sort of wake up, eat, run, eat, go to sleep, wake up, go to the gym, go to sleep. Like some of them have like 2 naps a day. And it was just an incredible lifestyle that I'm not saying that I nap twice a day now, but I learned a lot of lessons. And I think being able to build sort of a slight Ethiopian African culture in a training group back in the UK is no bad thing. And yes, I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. And I certainly don't do sort of recovery to the extent that they did, sort of with sort of sleep and not doing anything during the day, because you want to do things. Like if I want to sort of stay up a bit later and watch a film, I'm going to do that. Or I want to wake up early so I can go on a run before the Rugby World Cup final. I'm going to do that, even though we lost, which bittersweet, but it's all right. Yeah, I think it was just the most incredible experience. Incredibly well looked after by Zane, and yeah, forever thankful for that. And yeah, looking forward to seeing him on a start line, be it probably not for very long, in the near future.
If you look at Zane's Instagram, he was very complimentary of what he observed in yourself, the discipline, the time on your feet, the hours that you were out there running. And in researching for this, Tom, there was a great extract of, a typical training week that you had out there. And, if I read off here, it was Monday, 90 minutes in the morning, 60 minutes in the afternoon. So I think it was another run in the afternoon with a 60-minute nap. Tuesday, some hill repeats, quality session, a 4-hour run on Wednesday in the gym, a 5-hour run on Thursday. Friday was your day off. And this is what I like. You said, my day off, I truly meant a day off. If my watch tells me I've done more than 10,000 steps, it doesn't count as a day off. I get a massage, go to the pool and lounge around the pool basically. Saturday, 35k tempo run, and Sunday, an Ethiopian long run, 40k's, followed by the all-important breakfast and Ethiopian coffee. And, the emphasis is on social. It's a social run. So what would the pace of that 40k Ethiopian run be, long run?
They're always progressive. Like they'll start at sort of almost walking pace and just sort of slowly build and build. It almost sort of turns into a race back home, the last man standing. But yeah, it is really sociable. you're sort of chatting. There'll be points where you're sort of running 3 or 4 abreast. There'll be points where you're running single file. And yeah, I think for me, yes, a lot of them didn't speak much English, but I think that's the power of running, that you don't necessarily need to be able to speak the other person's language. Like, you're sharing something so incredible, and yeah, you're seeing so many amazing sights only people can dream of. The group runs for me were just, they were a real highlight.
Tom, as we record this, I had prior asked Zane Robertson for any questions to ask you, and it literally just came through as we're talking, and it says, ask Tom about his 6-hour run in Ethiopia.
It was miserable. The 6-hour one was tough. I had some funny experiences in Ethiopia. Like, I got hit by a car when I was running. I had stones thrown at me. But then on this long 6-hour long one, I actually had a knife pulled on me. I was trying to get as much climbing as I could, and sort of found this nice hill that went through this very, very remote village. I'm not sure anyone has ever run there before, and if they have, definitely not a white guy. Yeah, so on the third repeat, sort of someone came up the house and chased me with a knife, and sort of I turned the pedal to the metal and keeping up the hill and make sure I don't go back. But yeah, I just loved running out there. Like, you're running in some pretty remote places. For a lot of these runs, like for the 6-hour one, Zane joined me for the first 2 hours. That was amazing. And so actually doing 4 hours on your own is fine. And I'd always sort of just chuck a little bit of cash in a pocket and stop off at these like tiny wooden shack. It's like a corner shop almost, like a very, very small spa. And they'll sort of sell some like mango juice and some squash and things. And yeah, you just have some of those. And that's like your run nutrition. But yeah, it was just amazing. And like out there, like you'd tell like some of the local professional athletes like what you're doing for training, and like people would want to help out and jump in for a little bit and say, oh, that's too far, but I could do an hour in the middle. It was the like community spirit. I think they really, whether they understood fully, and it's a pretty like, I think the longest one I did out there was 8 hours, and I think that is the, for anyone out there, they were like, that's the longest run we have ever heard of out here for actually running. I think they really respected it. The thought that I was completely mental, but yeah, really, really respected. And yeah, I had an incredible time out there. Lots of frustrations. Like Zane and I used to, whenever we did, our second one would pretty much always be on the treadmill. So he could run easy, flat, and then I could run maybe not quite so easy, but on an incline just to get some good climbing. And in my last couple of weeks, it was the beginning of the short rainy season. And whenever it rained, there were just power cuts the whole time. So trying to run on a treadmill when there's a power cut doesn't work. So it ended up like just skipping around the gym. And yeah, so we got sort of cabin fever almost. But yeah, amazing experience. Learned so much. And yeah, I will go back at some point. And
encountered some hyenas too.
Yeah. But you'd see them in the car more if you went early for a long run. But yeah, I sort of probably from 2-3 meters ahead of me. You can smell them before you see them, and yeah, I think they're just really interested in you. And like when I'd go on my longer runs, you started pretty early because it got pretty hot during the middle of the day, and you wanted to be done by lunchtime. And yeah, it was just incredible. The hyenas were sort of almost sort of just didn't faze you at all. They were it was just, you just got so excited when you get to see something different. Yeah, it was amazing.
And Tom, I mean, your time there really set you up for then another fantastic performance in the Western States, where you picked up third and the fastest non-American finisher ever in that event, I believe, coming in just under 15 hours, snuck under there by 16 seconds, I think it was, and picking up a podium. So what did that result then do for your profile and your career? Yeah,
it was amazing. That was my second race in the US. I raced a 50-miler in the US earlier this year even, because wanted to get the trail running is so huge in the US, and it's a very different style. It's fast from the gun, not necessarily so tactical. It's just go out hard and just see how hard you can keep going, which I really admire. And I think it's definitely a style of racing. I mean, it definitely works in the US, and I don't really think it works in Europe. But not to say that it will never work in Europe. And yeah, so I just wanted to go out there and see it. For me, this last year has sort of kind of been just about testing things, and sort of the one, like, I've raced short trail races, long-ish trail races, short mountain races, long mountain races. What I really want to do is race a really long, I wanted to race a 100-miler. And for me, I like races that have got a little bit more to them. So Western States being the original 100-miler, used to be a horse race. Going to the US in an environment that has just been dominated by American runners for a very long time. Yeah, really want to go to the US and take part in such an incredible race. Like, it's a really small race. There are only under 300 people who get to stand on the start line, but it's one of the highest races that people put their name in the hat for. Like, the lottery system is incredible, and I was very lucky to get given my place by the Ultra-Trail World Tour. But I went to America anyway you can race into them, and if you finish, you can get a golden ticket into the race. So I raced at Lake Sonoma and got given a golden ticket, but turned the golden ticket down because I already had the place. And yeah, it was first 100-miler. 100 miles it's a long old way. It was an incredible experience. I absolutely loved it. I love the environment of racing in the US. It's very different to Europe. It's very loud. It's very sociable. It's some of the checkpoints are just like a party. Yeah, it was brilliant, and I loved it and was incredibly well looked after by the Americans. And yeah, it was a brilliant experience. And yeah, to be able to sneak under 15 hours in a debut 100-miler is sort of, yeah, an absolute dream come true. That was sort of best case scenario. Yes, things went our way with the weather, and actually, I prepared quite a lot for the heat. Would I have done better had it been a bit hotter? Who knows? And that's the thing with ultra running. Like, there are just so many uncontrollable external factors that someone who not prepared that well for the heat may have done better on the day. But next year, if it's a really hot year and it's 1 in 18 hours, it will probably be one of the slightly more sensible guys who went off a bit slower. Yeah, this sort of first 100-miler, really nice to get through it. Learned so many lessons during the race, and now sort of kind of feel like I've sort of touched all bases and are now sort of ready to settle in and sort of hit my sweet spot for the next couple of years, which is really exciting.
You're listening to UK-based ultra trail running sensation Tom Evans on this A Featured Performer episode. If you missed last week's episode featuring New York Times best-selling author of Good to Go, Christy Ashwindon, it was a deep dive into the strange science of recovery and what we can all learn about it. There's been so much feedback about this episode, so here's a little snippet of what you missed.
One of the things I found while researching this book, I mean, I read probably close to 1,000 research papers, in the scientific literature about this stuff. And one of the things that I found is that so much of what we do in sport is just tradition. Things like, this is how we've always done it. Icing is one of these things, and there is a theory behind it. It wasn't just something that someone made up. We have good evidence now that it's not helpful.
To enjoy the full episode, jump over to wherever it is that you enjoy your podcast from, and whilst there, consider perusing the archives dating right back to episode 1, featuring surf lifesaving Ironman champion Alistair Day. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured guest, ultra running's newest star, Tom Evans.
Tom, let's fly through a performance round and then come out the other side with a few questions I have for you around some of your training philosophies, psychological preparation, and also the importance of hitting some key sessions in a training block. So are you ready for the performance round?
Yeah.
Training session most disliked?
4 by 8 minutes at 10K pace.
With what recovery?
90 seconds.
Oof. Training session most loved?
A cross-country session that I did 2 days ago that is very short, 3 miles with 3 hill reps after each. So, yeah, 3 times 1 mile, 3 hill reps.
That sounds like a session you could dislike as well, but you love it. Favourite pre-race meal?
It depends where you are. Something local.
Hyena. Bedtime, morning time. Are you quite disciplined with that?
Yeah, pretty disciplined. Bedtime, probably go up to bed at 9:30, asleep by 10, wake up 7:15, out of bed at 7:30.
That's great. What a great range of sleep there. Who is the athlete Tom Evans most admires and why?
Crikey, good question. I think I'd have to say current athlete, Kilian Jornet, who is trail runner, mountain runner, ski mountaineer. He's just so talented at what he does at all disciplines, whether he's running 10K or 100 miles. He's so specific with it, and you know that he's going to crush it. So yeah, really, really inspirational.
Toughest competitor you've ever raced and why?
Jim Walmsley, because incredibly competitive, incredibly talented, and yeah, goes hard from the gun. And I've trained with him in Flagstaff, and yeah, an incredible athlete.
Is there a mantra, Tom, you use when you race or compete?
Main mantra that I use is process, not outcome. And for me, that's the process has been done. The training's been done. The hay's in the barn. The outcome is, if I think that I've left no stone unturned, the outcome is kind of going to look after itself.
Your best recovery tip?
When, make sure your recovery runs are recovery runs. Slow down.
Your worst injury?
Very recently, I still don't know what it was, which makes it even worse. Couple of MRI scans later, still not sure, and it's sort of taken about 2 months to bounce back from. But I'm happy to say that, back running full volume and fast-ish, which is nice.
Excellent. One word to describe Tom Evans' racing style?
Erratic.
How would you describe being in the zone?
Just where everything clicks.
And when was the last time you were in the zone?
This morning.
Tom, final question. What's the hardest session you've ever done?
Hardest I've ever done is an 8-hour long run in Ethiopia, pretty much all above 3,000 meters of elevation.
Yeah, well, there's that 8-hour run again. Tom, well done. You're out of the performance round. You've survived. Let's cover some learnings. Psychology. I've read that, part of your success you attribute to the psychological side, and that you, in preparing for events, you often do a lot of visualization. So Tom Evans' best tips to listeners of the show in helping to prepare for an event and the importance of the psychological aspect?
So visualization, I used to visualize having the perfect race and would visualize myself, everything going perfectly, crossing the line first, nothing goes wrong. Like I said earlier, there's no such thing as a perfect build-up. There's no such thing as a perfect race. Something is going to happen that you weren't expecting. So I will, maybe the month before a race, every night we'll take 5-10 minutes and just go through a couple of different scenarios of things that might happen, a few what ifs. What if I get a puncture in my water bottle and it starts leaking? What if I go the wrong way? What if my shoelace breaks? What if I go out too hard and I get a stitch? How am I going to come back from that? At what points? And whether those things do or don't happen, you've thought about it, and it just gives you ultra running is all about problem solving. And can you reduce and can you minimize damage when something starts going wrong? And when you bonk, which you are going to bonk in a 100-mile race, how quickly can you stay composed, and then can you get yourself out of it? Because the people in front of you are going to bonk at some point, and the people behind you are, but it's you, and you're the one who's got to be in control. And then another psychological thing is I've got a phrase, control the controllables. In an ultra marathon, there are less things you can control, but the course, for example, yes, it may be 100 miles, it may be 100 kilometers, but the course is available to look at online. Download the GPX, get to your race 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, if possible, and run the course. Because if you know where the course is, I will then plan. And the reason why I say that my racing style is erratic, people may think it's erratic. For me and my coach, it's not at all, because we will have targeted 2 or 3 sections of a race where the pace picks up and will go hard, and you might end up running in a 100-kilometer race. You may be running it near enough, somewhere between half marathon and marathon pace for 4 or 5 miles. Yeah, I think knowing the course gives you a huge psychological benefit when things get tough in the race, which they are going to get tough.
So, Tom, 2 things there from that. The visualization. It's not about visualizing the perfect race because, as you just noted, you can't always control the uncontrollables. You can control the controllables, and then also, focusing on, as you say, the things you can control. Tom, leading into a race or an event in a training block, I've read that you have been heard to say and put the focus on hitting those key sessions. So what encouragement can Tom Evans share with listeners of the show who maybe have a 12 or 16-week training block for event X, Y, or Z in terms of your perspective around making sure the key sessions get done? Because, as you say, life will happen around that, and there's no such thing as a perfect preparation.
Yeah, I think just being really aware and knowing which of those sessions are the really important ones. And if those important ones are probably going to be most specific to the race. So if you are training for an ultramarathon, typically the longer runs are going to be the most specific and the most important ones. So making for on that day, make it into a race replication. Wake up at the time that you're planning on waking up, eat the breakfast that you're planning on eating on race day, and start your run at the time that it's going to start on race day. And if it's a nighttime run, get used to running in the dark. If the race at 6 a.m, get used to waking up at 3 and having your breakfast and going back to bed for an hour, or having to sit in the car for an hour before the race. Those key sessions, once they may be a bit intimidating going into them, but once you've done them, you'll then be stood on the start line of the race being like, right, this is going to be tough, but I know that I have already done this race. I know that I've already done this hard session. It's not going to be tougher than that. And a lot of people stand on the start line and sort of worry and panic about the sessions that they have not done, whereas I like to stand on the start line and think of, right, this is what I've done. I am here. I've done some amazing training in the meantime. It's now an even playing field. It's sort of you against everyone else, or you against the clock, or you against yourself. And you know that you've put the money in the bank, and you're going to crush it.
Tom, there is so much wisdom and maturity in your sharings. It really is really impressive. If you could boil everything you've learnt to date, which if we tally up the years you've been focusing on your running as a career, if you like, if you'd call it that, how many years has it been, Tom?
So I turned full-time in July this year.
So we're talking a matter of a few months. If you could take those few months plus your amateur years, if you want to term them that, and boil everything you've learnt to one solitary piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their own physical best, what will Tom Evans's one piece of advice be?
I think my one major bit of advice would be process, not outcome. Like at the beginning of a training block, set a goal. That is going to be the outcome, and then work back from that. Right, what do I need to do in order to achieve my goal? And that can go anything from your training to any lifestyle changes that you're going to have to make. Right, I'm actually going to give up drinking beer for these 8 weeks or whatever. And then the process is it's not months at a time, it's not week at a time, it's not day at a time. It can go down to a session at a time, it can go down to a kilometer or a mile at a time. And there are some hard runs that I'll just be stood by the door for a couple of minutes, raining outside, it's dark, my head torch has run out of battery, and you're just trying to make up all of these excuses and tell yourself, oh, it'll be okay, I'll just add on a couple of extra miles tomorrow. But it's there for a reason. The only person you've got to hold yourself accountable for the work that you're going to do. And if you really want to achieve that outcome, the process has got to be followed. And when things get tough, just remember that you are working that process in order to achieve that outcome. And you can then be still on the start line thinking, right, I've done the process. And yes, the race is still part of the process, but I am that one step closer to the outcome, to that goal that I set myself at the beginning of the training block. And for me, that's firstly really motivational during training, but then it's also hugely rewarding post-race.
Process, not outcome. And listening to you share, Tom, I just can't help but feel the influence of your military years just seeping through your now 4 months professional approach to your running.
Yeah, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, who knows?
Well, I think it's there's definitely a discipline to your approach, which, you can expect all professional athletes to have, but there's also there's also that appreciation for some of the things you've shared. There's no such thing as a perfect prep and process before outcome. It's really really interesting. Tom, every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Tom Evans's physical challenge to listeners for the week going to be?
So my physical challenge for this week is to see how much vertical you can gain in one run.
What's given birth to this challenge? Is that something you've done before, or you're just very curious to see what people can come up with? As a physio, I'm going, oh, crikey, Achilles tendons.
No, uphill's great. It's downhill that you need to worry about. I think for me, there'll be runs where I will just go up and down and up and down. But I like to, going back to training specifically if I'm in the UK training I did a lot in Ethiopia. I'd printed out the main climbs on a bit of paper, laminated them, worked out the percentage of the gradient, and worked out at what speed I would need to run up that hill in order to be at the front of the race, and would program it in. So I knew that the first climb coming out of the escarpment, for anyone who knows the Western States course, it is likely you'll get to the top in 45 minutes at an average of 13.5%. There are some sections that are steeper, some sections that aren't so steep. Yeah, just training really specifically, very boring, but it works. And you've got to think, living in the UK, training for mountain races, you've got to think slightly outside the box. 2 words, Tom: military precision. What are your top 3 tips, Tom, for downhill running? Top 3 tips for downhill running is, so be confident, number 1. Number 2, keep your eyes up and don't look at the ground where your feet are landing. And number 3 is stay really relaxed. And by that I mean, don't lift your shoulders up. If your arms are flying about everywhere, it doesn't matter. That will help you keep balance. So to go through that again: 1, be confident. 2, don't look down, look up. And 3, stay relaxed. There you have it, Tom Evans's 3 downhill running tips, and they work very well for you, Tom. So we would be wise to adopt them. Tom, I believe there's some aspirations or some desire to test yourself at some stage, potentially Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games in the marathon and beyond. So any concrete steps, pardon the pun, to shift from the trails onto the bitumen to chase that down? Not so much yet. I've used a lot of road training and marathon-specific training for my ultra marathon prep. And at the moment, I'm preparing for some shorter cross-country races in the UK. But yeah, that will sort of all start to come into effect sort of end of 2020, sort of through 2021. Maybe I'll be lining up for a marathon next year on the road at some point. We'll have to see. That race plan for 2020 is my closest guarded secret at the moment. Look out. So if we want to find out this closely guarded secret, Tom, where can we follow the adventure as it unfolds? So best place is probably on my social media, and that's on Instagram or Twitter on Tom Evans Ultra. Tom, just finally, 2 questions. The most important thing in life is? Smiling. What drives you to work hard? My stubbornness not to give up. Brilliant. With that, Tom Evans, thank you for your time, your contribution to the listeners, to myself. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know that you enjoyed Tom Evans' share-ins today. If you did, then please reach out and let Tom know what it was that you enjoyed from the show. You'll find Tom over on Instagram at Tom Evans, TOMEVANS, Ultra, ULTRA. Whilst there, consider a podsy. That's a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying, tagging in the show at Physical Performance Show, and Tom at Tom Evans Ultra. My handles on social media are at Brad_beer on Instagram and Twitter. Now it's annual feedback time, so if you have some feedback for this show on how we can make it better, and to go into the draw to win a $50 Amazon gift card, then we would love to hear from you. It's a quick survey that can be found over at pogophysio.com.au/podcast/. Simply scroll to the bottom and hit the big green button that says let us know what you think of the show to go into the draw. We're taking feedback right up until the last episode of the show in 2019. So please let us know what you think of the show. A huge thanks to those of you who have been, firstly, hitting subscribe. That is the best way to help the show grow. Secondly, sharing the episode with your friends and fellow athletes. And thirdly, leaving ratings and reviews for the show over on iTunes. Massive thanks also to the great folk who make this show possible each week. Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin, all things show administration, Matthew Olding, all things graphic design, and Oliver Crossley, helping behind the scenes. Another huge thanks to today's show sponsor, PhysioCram. Podcasts are certainly free to download. However, they are not free to produce, and PhysioCram, your support means an incredible amount. Don't forget, there's a fantastic offer from the crew at PhysioCram by jumping over to their website, physiocram.com.au, and redeeming 20% off any product there in the store, simply with the coupon code POGO, P-O-G-O. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we'll bring you an interest edition. This is a remarkable story of a father and son. Now, this father and son, Tommy Hughes and also Owen Hughes, have just set in the Frankfurt Marathon the world combined fastest marathon time. And here's the kicker. Tommy, the father, also known as the Marrakesh Express, ran a 2:27.52, an age group world record. Forget this, a 59-year-old. That's right, a 59-year-old, 2:27.52. Owen, who at 33 years of age and with just a few years of running under his belt, ran an impressive 2:31.30. The combined time, 4:59.22. The gentlemen, father and son, hail from Ireland, and in next week's episode, Tommy recounts his early running years, which included a 1992 Barcelona Olympic outing representing Ireland, and some incredible tales along the way. And Owen shares what it was like growing up with a running father, and how he found running shoes over cigarettes, drinking, and parties. Here's a little snippet of my conversation with Tommy and Owen Hughes.
And I was running, I was just trying to get to the finish, and with about 3 miles to go, my dad came up on my side and just sort of gave me a nudge and says, "Come on, you can do this." And he just flew past me. And at that point, so I knew that the Guinness World Record was still within reach, well within reach. So that sort of brought me home. I just started pushing it, right? Just get to the finish line, get to the finish line.
So be sure to be tuning in to the full episode next week. Until then, keep pursuing your own physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.